being a lone wolf is a liability. And we're going to talk about that today. But first, I want to begin with this actually came out of something else here I want to screen share from a couple weeks back. Jane McGonigal, you might know Avant Game from written some awesome books, gave a few, I think multiple, really cool TED Talks. She was asking who would be a good person to interview paid for research on the future of amateur game development. Looking for an expert on tools, platforms, plus trends, and players making their own games, like how YouTube created a massive generation of video content creators. And then sure enough, in the responses, we got Claim recommending me, we got H recommending, we got Chris recommending, we got Jeremy, got Tyler, got Jeff, got Cornell. Thanks so much, y'all, for weighing in there, including also Alan. Appreciate that. As well as not just home team members, we also got Bo in there saying some nice things, Ben seconding that. And yeah, so just thanks so much for that. That's pretty cool. She reached out to me after the fact because I was more recommended than the other folks. And so got a chance to talk about that. And it wasn't behind an NDA or anything, but we'll keep that as an internal private research discussion. Part of what they're doing too might even involve some things that are like part of my mission, but I don't care that I won't be attached to it probably. When you're all about what gets done, not who gets credit for it. Like I've got these things I want to see, right? Like I want more people out there building games, their own games, than playing musical instruments. Not every home has a grand piano. Not every home has a flute or can afford one. Not every home has the acoustic space to have a drum set in it. But a whole lot of homes, not all, but certainly far more homes have a computer in it that's functional enough to be able to program games on it. So that's just sitting in their homes. And I think we're moving towards that tipping point day after day. Anyway, that was cool. But that was part of this point came from today of one of the distinctions between the difference between the home team approach that we're doing stuff as, in many ways, I believe the future of how game development's going to happen. A lot of folks have this mistaken impression that in order to get the job they want to have, in order to make the thing that they want to build, that they need to be able to do it all themselves. That they need to be able to get out there and show that without needing anybody else's help, without needing to turn to anybody else, without needing to partner with anybody else, without any compromises, they just got to be able to do it all themselves. And this is very much a liability, right? Actual big companies, actual teams, actual contracting, and so on. When they see a portfolio that's just the big impressive project someone did all by themselves, they usually don't want those people. I can literally name out of the hundreds of people in my network that I've interviewed for different purposes, Indiecade, IGDA, Home Team, and so on. Like one example of somebody who had a big, mostly lone wolf project, even then not truly lone wolf, whoever even wound up doing anything else after that, bigger than that, better than that, outside of themselves. Because it's a liability, right? We find this sense of like, well, I need to be able to show that I could do it all myself. But the reality is doing something bigger than we could do alone. It's really important to show I can write code others can read. I can make compromises and navigate and coordinate design changes over time. I can articulate plans. I can responsibly and maturely pace out my work. I know how to receive and take and function on feedback and not be defensive about it in a counterproductive way. I know how to, for that matter, reach out for help if it's going to help me get there faster or higher quality or get things better done. And that's what, in Home Team, we practice those kind of things. Anyway, there's no way to practice that stuff solo. Literally, the longer someone goes solo, and solo can be an okay way to get started. It can be a perfectly fine way to splash and thrash on your own, to experiment, explore a little bit and figure out what do I like doing. But as soon as you hit decent sophistication of kind of going above and beyond the scale of a jam, that's where very quickly, and like I say, before I was doing Home Team, I used to work with people one-on-one. And so I would see these examples of a solo developer, even with mentorship, even with guidance, even with being able to discuss upfront pros and cons of different pathways at each decision point they're reaching at a technical, creative, or planning perspective. It would still take years, literally years, at the part-time, maybe a few hours a week basis to get done with a team, even if it's an amateur team of other beginners, happens in a few months at most. Except better. Literally better work in far less time, a fraction of the time, when there's multiple people working on it. And that, again, is what actually shows better in a portfolio. I've actually had a chance now, I've had increasingly small gigs, so not full-time stuff, but say anywhere between 3-week contracts to 6-month contracts coming my way for different kind of roles people just needed to match somebody up for. And there's a certain set of criteria I've been looking for to who I can recommend for those with confidence, that when they see these people, they're like, yeah, that's the person we need. And a lot of these things I'm realizing are that the stuff that's supplementing those portfolios to build up that case is basically stuff Home Team's helping them do. Now, we're not necessarily the only way to get team experience behind you or to show you have leadership experience in a project you've seen through on a longer schedule. But certainly we've done that for a lot of people who, before they found us, didn't yet have that to show. Or in other cases, when someone's trying to find a match for something, they want to see something comparable to what they're doing. Either similar style, similar genre, whatever. And that's where when we, in our home team process, get people's portfolios built up over, I mean, heck, let's just check these out, right? I know I've shown you before our Game Changers list, which I'm just about to update. I think we got like 4 more people who are going to be on this list once I get the update, probably literally later today. So when you look at this page, it might be a different set of people when you go to Home Team Game Dev, check out our released games. Just a reminder what this is. These are people who, for at least 8 of the 13 quarters, or 8 of the 13 weeks in a quarter, so 2 out of 3 weeks, they can literally take 1 out of 3 weeks off, not asking anybody's permission, prioritize work that week, school that week, family that week. If they're in there at least 2 out of every 3 weeks, they make the Game Changers list. And then all these names in red link to their portfolios. And so if I'm trying to link to somebody and say, hey, check it out, Randy can get done what you need done. Randy has worked on so many games through Home Team, and you can just see the stuff that he has done and delivered on 4 different projects, that it greatly increases the chance that they're going to see something and they're like, actually, no, because what we need is something that overlaps a racing game, a narrative game, a classic DOS-style artillery cannon game. And in each case, he's a part of a team bigger than himself. Oh, I guess in some cases, he's got solo project. Again, doesn't hurt to show that too. But in many cases, it helps to show here's more people, here's a longer term project. And we see that for so many of our members as we kind of browse their pages. The quantity, the types of things that they've done on a variety of projects. And I think what also gets lost sometimes when people are browsing these projects people in Home Team have done together and the experience they've accumulated over their time with us is missing the fact that this is often literally just an evening or 2 a week. Right? This is not a full-time school. This is not a boot camp where they're supposed to be taking months off of work. We literally encourage our members to keep the day job. Don't turn your life upside down just to be able to do this stuff. Now, these are people who are leading projects, participating in projects, chipping in on projects in a way that fits so that when they're new, it can be very small stuff just to wade into it to get a sense for the process. And as they gain experience, we encourage, I think we've had about 1 out of 3 of our members who are actively involved become project leads. Anybody can just get in there and do it on the leading side, who has the basics to be able to at least prototype individually or independently. And then I help them with getting that prototype ready to pitch from, getting their schedule in place, keeping their project on track, answering questions as they go. I mean, another thing about our process and kind of how and why every single project we've started released, right? I mean, I think this also maybe sometimes gets overlooked because there's a lot of other groups out there that claim they're going to tame people up or get people to collaborate, but they've got nothing to show for it. I think actually this is about to load a whole other section. Yeah, there it goes. Whole other section of more games with more credits on them. Every project we start finishes, precisely because, here's even more loading, precisely because I can meet with all of our members to help them. That's part of what Home Team membership is all about. It's not just a framework in which you work with other people. It's definitely that. And additionally, they meet with me when they're stuck, which even for members not meeting with me, every single member that they are working with, they know they can follow through because the other members they're working with can also meet up with me. And the leads also can meet with me twice as often, every single week as opposed to every other week. And all that's just part of our process. But it's why every single project that we say we're going to release, we release. And that's now nearly 100 games, in each case with team experience. And this goes back to where, again, the lone wolf thing, we get this pride tied up, and I need to do it myself. And I need to be able to do it all on my lonesome. And this even came up the other day, right? Someone was talking to me about solo development, and they used the example they thought of Sonic Mania. And again, this is a great example of where it completely warps our perception about Sonic Mania, famously developed by Christian Whitehead. We see that right there, right? But then we also see Headcanon and Pagoda West Games in association with Sega. And sure enough, if we keep scrolling down, I mean, okay, so he's the lead developer, absolutely, and clearly. There's also, he's got help there with a project manager and business development. While we're at it, in terms of programming, he also had the help of Simon Tomley and Hunter Bridges. Additionally, in terms of design, had 3 other designers working for him. In addition to that, an art director, 3 other artists, sound, a full sound team, including, this is not even before we get to the business side, the original music, the animation intros, obviously a lot of the business division stuff, right? This is not a single one-person project. That's not what's going on here. You've got to learn to work with other people. I think another page, IMDb shows a different listing where once again we see there's a set of uncredited people. There's a set of producers, executive producers, animation producers, level designers, sound designers, an entire elite force of animators going on. In preparation for that call with Jane McGonigal, I had pulled up my extra credits episode that I wrote on some years ago on non-professional game dev. But this is the other side to that, right? Of the Artour myth was another episode I wrote for that channel about the fact that quite often the stuff that from the outside we perceive or talk about or imagine as a solo project, it's not. It really isn't. It virtually never is. It's quite often there's uncredited people behind the scenes. There's people who aren't, maybe they're not the spokesperson. They weren't the core decider. They weren't the core driver, but that's also true for like AAA teams of hundreds of people where there's still, we see it as like a Miyamoto project or like a Kojima game or a Will Wright game or a Sid Meier game. And again, this is not to say anything negative about any of them. They're all super talented people, but it's super different. The fact that it's not like they're sitting there alone doing it all themselves. You have to learn to work with other people. You have to learn to coordinate. You have to learn to take feedback, to put yourself in a situation where you can ask others if you are stuck with something, where you can grow, basically. And then that's who someone wants to work with. And one of the ways I've also been trying to think about the value that we deliver to our people is that in many ways, because of our process, because of our iteration, because of the way we have people drift between teams, and the way our project leads design their projects to try to be engaging to the people who want to participate on it so they get some of that satisfaction of building interesting things that are fun to work on. In many ways, we want to try to help our people become someone that other people will be excited to have join their team, right? And I'm even though I'm a teacher at heart, I'm also sort of an engineer at heart. And I think one of the things about that mindset, that set of values for a lot of folks coming from an engineering background is kind of wanting to feel like people are happy to see when you're involved with a project. People are happy to see you coming on board. People are happy to see, oh, thank goodness they're involved with us. This is going to come out so much better now. And we want to help try to get more people to that level. And that comes through experience. It comes through practice. That comes through learning to be more cooperative. It comes from learning how to be on both sides of reading and working with, whether it's code, asset, structure, pipeline, process, both knowing how to do it well and trying to figure out how to cross-pollinate those learnings forward. And occasionally be on the other side of that and learning from others, providing a bit of feedback on, hey, I've been around for a couple years doing this stuff. Here's some things that we found worked. And you add that to your tool belt. And then every time they're forward for the rest of your pathway, you're on the other side of that doing the same for others. And that whole thing works in a case where people are, like I said, cross-pollinating learning, not trying to lone wolf it. I really think one of the biggest differences between what Home Team does as an online community as opposed to so many other, there's infinite game developer communities out there, right? Where you can find out there a bunch of those discords are people with either their solo project on the outside, which they're spending years doing, and I think would get done much better, faster, and higher quality if they got other people involved. Or they have a small team, but they're like the representative on that board, and they're just shouting to no one in particular about their thing. And no one's listening to each other, and nobody cares, and nobody's paying attention. They got their own thing to worry about. And what a difference it makes, right? I mean, picture you're in a college class or whatever. When your group went up to present, you paid attention because you worked on that thing. Well, because our processes in Home Team involve people shuffling between projects, any given week, you might go on to work on that other project. Any given week, maybe you already worked on that project. And suddenly, you have a direct personal investment in paying attention to every single project and seeing it proceed and celebrating its successes and encouraging the people involved on it. Because the better it does and the better they do, the better your stuff's going to be elevated too. And what a difference that makes to suddenly see ourselves as a part of all of this, as a part of a community, where really we're cooperating, we're building things together. And like I say, it's not just this thing of a bunch of people who are shouting about themselves. It becomes a matter of like, how do we make each other better? And this is also a continuity thing where we have people stick around, and those, sometimes longer than they were game changers, but for many quarters in a row. And so often what happens is, if you're in a touch and go online community where it doesn't have the kind of sustainability, doesn't have the kind of continuity to it, then there's a sense that, why would I explain something to this person? I'm never going to see them again. I just need to replace them with someone better. When there's a continuity to a community, it makes an enormous difference because suddenly you're still going to be on the same team as these people. And it's like if you're on a sports team, you want your teammates to do better because your whole team's going to succeed that way. And so people very much teach each other, help each other, supportive and encouraging each other because they know that we're going to be together on the next project too. When I shift over to this other project team, I'm going to find you and your work over there too. And so if there's a misunderstanding they have, if there's a way they're doing something that's counterproductive, we want to help each other understand that because that's going to help elevate all of our work as well. And it structurally is something that rewards and incentivizes caring about each other, caring about our work, paying attention to what each other are doing. And lastly, that's this other point of precisely because of that, when we see people out there who complain about game development being lonely, who complain about game development tearing them up or being filled with uncertainty or risk, I think it's because they're doing it wrong. None of those necessarily have to be a part of it. That's what happens when someone tries to lone wolf. That's what happens when someone tries to go straight to doing things commercially before they are at a skill level where they're ready to do that. It doesn't have to be that way at all. Because what's happening is they end up in this case where they can't get any feedback, they can't get anyone to pay attention, they can't get anyone to follow what they're doing. In our case, even though we're building freeware, peers are paying attention. Peers are seeing and celebrating that progress. The leads are excited to see the stuff coming in. The teammates, everyone's morale is improved when they see new stuff coming in from more people in their groups. And what a difference that makes. When you essentially have an audience of your peers, when it's people are paying attention, it's a real difference from that versus, again, these other kind of settings where instead, and I'm not even going to call it communities, what you see elsewhere, these places where people are living off in their lonesome, they feel like they're shouting and no one's listening. It's because no one's listening. Because no one else is invested in it. It's because no one else is involved with it. Because they haven't opened up their circle to let other people in to be a part of it. And that's where, when we do that, which is what we're all about, every single project we do in Home Team is collaborative. That's how that happens. So anyway, quick pitch today for, obviously, the value of that. I want to thank again everyone who gave me a recommendation to Jane McGonigal to reach out to me. That was a lot of fun having the conversation. Pretty cool. I suspect there's probably a couple of things I brought up in there that I'm sure I've at least had my notes I was working from. I'm sure I'll bring up some echoes of those in the future videos ahead. But it's a good approach for a lot of folks. I think sometimes I'm probably doing a disservice by not better being out there banging the drum for just what a difference it makes in these people's lives in the Home Team offer. Anyway, I just accepted a series of applicants, probably another batch coming in about a month and a half. So if you didn't get your email yet, probably hear from me in about a month or so. Welcome to our new members. I think there's another one or two who are kind of still deciding. I think got a few more days left to think about that. And if you haven't yet, you can still apply to that, hometeamgamedev.com. We do have people who come in from a broad range of backgrounds. Some people who have never done anything before. Our intro course is helping get them ramped up. Other people who've been making stuff for a while. We literally just had a member join us who went to school for game development. And we had a couple of those. It's not the same one I gave the Justin testimonial the other day. This is another guy. I don't want to say his name because he's new to our community. We're glad to have him with us, though. But no matter what your background, we can find a way to fit you into the process, whether you want to specialize as well. We've also had a lot of members mentioning that we're a case where, in the school setting, you got to decide what it is you want to do with your life. And you got to take a bet on, I guess I'm going to be an artist. I guess I'm going to be a programmer. I guess I'm going to be a business person or whatever. And they get stuck on that track for 4 years. Because of the advantages of learning off the internet and the resources that we've brought together and the community structure we have, people can very much sampler platter, drop in, try making sound effects, try making art, try making levels, try making code, try different parts of the process, being a project lead, figure out which things they love and don't love, and then enables them, empowers them, unlocks them to say, okay, I've actually tried it and I know I really like modeling or I really like doing sound, and lets them go deeper in that channel, in that category or skill without having to guess, without having to say out of naivety or not having tried it, here's what I'm going to go down. So sometimes too, it's even if you're not sure what you want to do, it can be a way to find out. Join us, apply at hometeamgamedev.com. Look forward to building games together. Thanks for being here. See you next time.